Okay, welcome to lesson 5.2. So this should be your second lesson of the day. Yesterday, you guys should have went and learned about circle graphs. Today, we're going to learn about line graphs. Line graphs are really good for kind of showing trends. So where we see line graphs is typically the weather. The weather is a good one, right? You see your 14-day weather trend, and it's a line, and you see the temperature going up and down. That's kind of the best time to use line graphs. So for example, right here, we're looking at money in the bank in thousands of dollars versus the year that it is. So for instance, if you look 1998 right here, it's at $2,000 because it's in thousands. So that's how you read a line graph. And you can see that it's going up throughout the year, right? It's increasing until eventually it hits this point, which is in 1999. So question A says, how much money was in the bank in 1999 and 2002 in total? All right, how much was in the bank in 1999? 1999 is this line right here. We go up, we find the dot, we look over. It was $8,000 in 1999. In 2002, we're going to look for 2002. We're going to go up until we hit our line right there. We look over. It was 2002, $3,000. That's how much was in the bank. Question B, how much more money was in the bank in 1999 than 2003? Well, in 1999 was 8,000. We already know that. In 2003, we're way down here, and that was at $1,000 in 2003. So if we were at 8,000 in 1999, we subtract 1,000 from 2003. That means we had $7,000 in total. Question C, how many times more money was there in the bank in 1999 than 1998? So if we look at 1999, it's 8,000. 1998, if we look, 1998 is here. It was 2,000. How many more times? That would be 8,000 divided by 2,000 would tell you how many times bigger it was. It was 4 times bigger. And last one, in 2005, there was twice the amount of money in the bank as there was 1998 to 2004. How much money was in the bank in 2005? So from 1998 to 2004, we would have to total up all that money to figure out how much there was. So there was 2,000 plus 8,000 plus 7 plus 5 plus 3 plus 1 plus 4. And if you added all that up, you'd figure out how much money was in the bank all those years. So we go 2,000 plus 8,000 plus 7,000 plus, so it's 5,000. Plus 3,000, plus 1,000, plus 4,000. That would give you the total amount of money in all the years. It's 22, 25, 26. It's 30,000 total. The question said there was twice the amount in 2005. So it means there's $60,000 in 2005. They did good in 2005. They made some cash. All right, that's how you read a line graph. Pretty simple stuff. You've probably been doing it most of your life. At some point, you saw line graphs and kind of figure out what's going on. This line graph is about dozens of pets sold each month. So it's always important to know what your scale is. It's going by dozens. Dozens means times 12. Right? So 1 dozen would be 12. 2 dozen would be 2 times 12. 3 dozen would be 3 times 12, so on and so forth. And A, how many pets were sold in May? So in May, we look up and we see there's this many pets sold. That's 7 dozen. So 7 times 12 gives you 84 pets sold in May. Part B, how many more pets were sold in February than March? February was 6, March was 4. That's a difference of 2. So 2 times 12 was 24 more pets sold in February than March. C, in the last half of the year, they sold half the amount of pets that were sold in the first half of the year. How many pets were sold August to December? So this is the first half of the year, except July would be 7. Whatever. We're just going to go with it. So again, we're going to total it all up. So January was 5 plus 6 plus 4 plus 2 plus 7 plus 3 plus 1. That tells you how many pets were sold in dozens this year. That's 15, 13, 24, 27. That's 28 dozen were sold. If they said that they sold half the amount of pets, that means they sold 14 dozen. So 14 times 12 gives you 100 and, 68. 168 pets were sold in the back half of the year. Example 3. Me and Toby drove a delivery truck from Vancouver to Calgary in a day. They created a graph using the number of hours passed and the total distance traveled in kilometers shown here about how far had they traveled in the first 4 hours. Okay, so this is their distance traveled. This is a continuous graph. You'll notice it's always going upwards, right? Because you're not traveling backwards at any point. So the first hour, they traveled this far, which we're going to say is about 100. It asks how far in the first 4 hours. So we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be after 4 hours of travel. We could estimate that to be about 350 hours or 350 kilometers. Right, so this graph is showing how far they've traveled throughout the entire day. Part B, what points in time did they stop? So when didn't they travel? So if they stopped traveling, that means the graph would stop going upwards, right? So for instance, like from here to here, they weren't traveling, right? And they also stopped traveling from here to here because the distance isn't increasing at all. So that means they stopped from 11 to 12 and they stopped from 4 to 6. So they stopped twice. Part C, how far did they travel in total? That means we're all the way out here. I don't know. We're going to round that. We're going to say it's like 975 kilometers. If you just said 1,000, that would work. I think that's what it was supposed to be. Just the dot missed a little bit. Awesome. That's reading just like a continuous graph. Part 4, we have dozens of eggs laid per day, followed by the days. So part A, how many eggs were laid at both Hen's house and Rick's roost on Saturday? So if you look at Saturday, there's 2 dots. There's the blue dot and the red dot. The red dot is Hen's house. The blue dot is Rick's house. So we have 2 different houses laying eggs. On Saturday, Rick's house, the blue one, laid 1 dozen eggs, right? And the red one laid 6 dozen eggs. So on Saturday, in total, there was 7 dozen. A dozen means 12, so 7 times 12 is 84. Part B, what is the difference in eggs laid at Hen's house and Rick's house on Monday? So if we look at Monday, we have Hen's house is here on Monday at 2 dozen. Here, Rick's house is at 3 dozen. That means Rick sold 1 dozen more, or didn't sell, laid 1 dozen more. So that means there's a difference of 1 times 12, which is 12 more eggs. Part C, which days did Hen's house lay more eggs than Rick's? So we're looking for when Hen's line is above Rick's line. So for instance, right here, Hen's house is above Rick's house. Right here, Hen's house is above Rick's house. And right here, Hen's house is above Rick's house. So which days of the week? That'd be Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Part D, on Thursday, how did the number of eggs laid at Rick's house compare to the number of eggs laid at Hen's house? So if we look at Thursday, we would see there's a pretty big gap here on Thursday. This is the gap. The gap for Thursday would be right here. We would say that Hen's house laid 1, 2, 3, 4. Hen's house laid 4 dozen more eggs. Equals 48 more eggs at Hen's house. Part E, how many days did Rick's roost lay more eggs than Hen's house? Now we're looking for when the blue line's above the red line. If you look, it should be 4. There's a 1 right here, 2 right here, 3 right here, and 4 right there. That'd be the 4 days that Rick had more than Hen. 4 days. Example 5, we have a leaking water tank. So we have a water tank. You can see the water is going down as the day moves on. See, it's going downwards. Question A, about how much water is left in the tank after 3 days? So after 3 days. So 1, 2, 3. 3 days, there's this much water left, which would be approximately, I don't know, let's say 160 liters. Part B, how many days must pass until the tank is empty? So to figure that out, you take a ruler and you're going to just continue on this exact line. You're going to extend the line like that. Notice that it has to be perfectly straight. And you'll find whenever this water hits there, that would be 0. That means it took 17 days. So sometimes you actually have to extend the graph so you can learn a little bit more. See how many days must pass until there's 25 liters left. 25 liters left would be right about here. So if we looked straight across from that spot, it would be about there. So a rough estimation, I would say that's 15 days to get 25 liters left. Wonderful. Creating a line graph. Creating a line graph is actually pretty easy. So you're just going to take your data, and your data represents a point. So we have dates in January, and then the number of quarters that you have. So for instance, this point, 4/32, means go to the 4th date in January and go up to $32 collected. Oh, sorry. This is the number of quarters. Their measurement is in dollars. So I'm going to want to change this to be dollars. 32 quarters, that would be 32 times 0.25. That is $8. So I'm going to go at the 4th of January. There's $8. So I go up to 8 and I make a dot. That's my first point. Then I'm going to do that for every single point here. So on the 8th of January, I'm going to have $5. If I had 20 quarters, that's $5. So I go to the 8th of January. I go up to $5 right here, and I make a dot. I then do the same thing for the 12th. I have 16 quarters. 16 quarters would be $4. So on the 12th, I go up until I get to $4, and I make a point. And I'm just going to keep doing that. So on the 16th, I have 32. That's $8 again, so I'm all the way up here now. On the 20th, I only have 4 quarters, which is $1. So I'm all the way down here. This one right here, the 24th of January, that's my birthday. I would have $7 if you divided that. So 24th, $7 right there. And the last one, I would have $4. The 28th and 16 would be $4 right there. And then you basically just play connect the dot, kind of like when we were kids, right? So you're just going to go and you're going to connect all the dots with a nice ruler. Try to get to the center of the dots if you can. And the reason you see this is so you can kind of see like a trend in your money, right? Like it's going up and down, when it goes up, when it goes down, how fast it's going down. It just gives you kind of trends. That's how you make a line graph. A double line graph just means you're going to do it twice. You're just going to have one in one color, one in the other color. So I'm going to do the first one in red. So Good Dogs is selling dozens of hot dogs. So that means divide by 12 to figure out how many dozen. For instance, this would equal 3 dozen. I'm just going to go along and make my point. So on Monday, there was 3 dozen. On Tuesday, there was 1 dozen. On Wednesday, there was 2 dozen. I'm getting these numbers because I'm dividing by 12. On Thursday, there was, I think 8 dozen. Yeah, it is. I did not trust myself. On Friday, there was 6 dozen. On Saturday, there was 7 dozen. On Sunday, there was 4 dozen. And that would create Good Dogs line graph. And the way we're going to distinguish them is with colors. So if you're doing this on your own, you should have different colors to show different line graphs. I'm now going to do the blue for Hot Dogs Company. So this would represent 7 dozen. So on Monday, they were at 7 dozen. On Tuesday, they were at 4 dozen. Wednesday, they were at 6 dozen. Thursday, they were at 1 dozen. Friday, they were at 3 dozen. Saturday, they were way up there to 9 dozen, 8 dozen, sorry. And on Sunday, they had 5 dozen. And then I just connect the dots with a different color. So this time I'm going to do blue. And again, it shows you some trends on hot dog sales. You can see one company, like the reason why that we do double bar graphs is so that you can kind of look and see things like this. All of a sudden, one company is doing way better than the other, right? Red was way above blue, even though blue's usually above red. So that could tell you something, right? It could be like, okay, on Thursday, I bet you that red company must have a sale on hot dogs. Right? There's got to be a reason that people are changing over from their normal blue to the red company. So you look at things like that to kind of help you learn information. All right. We got one right here. We're going to draw a line graph where we have to create the sides. So you'll see along the bottom, there's the months. Whatever's time usually should go on the bottom of your graph. So we're going to go January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and we're going to make one more for December up there. Then we're going to have new members down the left-hand side. I like to look for the highest number that I got. So the highest number I have is 30. So ideally, I want the number 30 to be near the top. Then you can count by whatever you want that kind of makes sense. That'll get you to 30. So if I counted by 2s, this might work out. So I had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. Ooh, notice that I only got about halfway. So that's not good, right? We want to do better than that. So instead, I would go back and be like, oh, that did not work. I need to try to get closer to the top. I don't have to be perfect, but I got to get close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start counting every second one by 2. So that'd be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28. And I don't quite get to the top, but I get to the second highest one, which is 30. And your goal when you're creating a graph is always to try to fill as much space as you possibly can. Right? Don't make a little tiny graph that only goes in the bottom of this big piece of paper. Try to spread out your numbers so that it works nicely like this. And then you're just going to go ahead and you're going to place your points. So for January, we had 30, so I'm way up here. February, we had 13, so it'd be there. March, we had 14. April, we had 18. May, we had 23. June, we had 28. July, we're down to 21. August, we're way down to 12. September, we're at 12. October, we're at 11. November, we actually go up to 14. And December is 15. Then, after you've made your points, all you got to do is connect your dots. And you have a nice, pretty line graph. Like that. And you can kind of see the trends of new members at Tough Gym. You can see it starts really high in January, which makes sense. Everyone's doing their New Year's resolution. Everyone's going to the gym. Then it drops off really hard. Then it goes way up during the summer. Probably people wanting to get fit for summer and get out of the house. And then it drops down again in that kind of wintry months as it starts to go into fall. So that shows you the trends of this business, of the new members at Tough Gym. Cool. This last question you can do on your own. It's a double bar graph if you want. You're going to do it the same way you did this one right here. I will go through it real quick. Again, you have your months across the bottom. This time to get to the top, we're trying to get all the way up to like 400. So I'm trying to get up here to 400. When you're getting really big numbers, what I would do is I would count the number of spots you're going. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And if you take 400 and you divide it by the number of spots you have, it'll kind of tell you what you should be counting by. So that tells me to count by 20s. So if I go back, I can now go 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. All right, and just keep going until you get to your mark. So 220, 240, 260, 280, 300, 320, 340, 360, 380, 400. All right, so if you're not sure what to count by, figure out the highest number, then divide by the number of spots that you have, and it'll tell you what to count by. In this case, we wanted to count by 20s because that's what we got right here. I'm going to go ahead and graph these things. These are the months. I'm going to do different colors. So for the male graph, I'm going to do red. So January would be 50. February would be 150. March would be 75. April would be 150. May would be 100. June would be 175. July would be 100. August would be 300. September is 300. October is way down here to 75. November is 150. And December is way up here at 400. Then I can connect the dots to make my male's graph. This graph represents cell phone buyers by gender. And again, these trends can tell you things, right? Maybe it's telling you when new cell phones come out, right? Or maybe it's telling you when people get Christmas gifts. Notice that is really high in December, right? You can get information out of this. For the girls graph, I'm going to do green. So I got 25 down here, 225 way up here, 100 down here, 175 up here, 300 up here, 100 down here, 75 down here, 400 way up here, 450. Oh boy, I didn't even notice 450. I'm way off the chart. That means I screwed up early. 125 down here, 75 right there, and 300 would be over there. I'm going to create my lines. I never saw that we had to get up to 450. I screwed up. That's okay. We'll just go off the chart for a minute. You'd actually go further off the chart than that, but that's okay. And if you look, you'll notice that the girls' trend is actually very similar to the guys' trend, which makes sense. There shouldn't be much difference in the genders buying gifts. There was a massive difference right here, which is kind of strange. The trend really broke for the month of May, but maybe that's just a coincidence, right? It doesn't always mean there had to have been something that happened. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. Maybe that's Mother's Day, right? So a lot of people got a lot of the women got cell phones. Who knows? Maybe it was just a pure coincidence that one month broke the pattern. But if you look, almost every other month followed the same pattern. It started low, it went high in February, low in March, high in April, and then May is the only difference. Comes back down in June and July, skyrockets for August, September, drops really hard in October, November, and then December is the highest month again. Awesome. That's line graphs and how you can kind of see trends and read information from line graphs.